Hello there. Thank you for joining us. If you are a parent of a student who is about to enter their college admission process and you've had questions, but maybe you felt like it's too soon to ask or haven't wanted to add pressure to your student, then you're in the right place. This is Parenting the Pre College Student, and I am here with my colleague, James. Please introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm James Hayashi, the admissions manager here at college. I've had a lot of experience working with younger students, the exact type of student that I think the parents are parenting if you're watching this.
Awesome, James. Thanks so much for being here. And I am Andy Lozier, the Director of Admission Services. I have about 20 years of admission experience on both college admissions as a college admission counselor, reader, evaluator, and then also on the high school side of college counseling, as well as some high school administration. So, with that said, we're going to dive into some of our most frequently asked questions by parents. And James, I'd love your input on these just to start. How do I help my child stand out without pushing them too hard? I think a really good question this day and age, especially as parents are, concerned and hearing about more about the mental health crisis that many of our students are facing. And along those lines, if my student has no special interests or passions, they're just kind of an average teenager, and they aren't changing the world. What chance will they have in admission? Can you speak to those questions?
Yeah, those are, I'm glad you're starting off with those. They're two things that I hear a lot from parents, especially like seventh, eighth, and even ninth graders.
Mhm.
In terms of like helping your child without pushing too hard, I would say, and leading into the mental health aspect of the question, it doesn't have to be 100% push. If you can find programs or activities and volunteering that align with the student's interest, I think in terms of, again, that mental health piece, if the student is doing things that are fun and enjoyable, rather than feeling like, something they don't want to do, it can give them a sense of like, oh, I really like this, and it's something I look forward to every
Right.
week. We definitely have lots of students who we kind of listen to their wants, the ways that they enjoy spending time, and thought creatively about what are activities or things they could do that would get them service hours or programs that they could do in the summer where they like it and they're kind of building their resume.
Mhm.
Uh, with respect to the second question, if you feel like your child doesn't have any particular like things that really stand out about them, I guess I would challenge that one on a couple of fronts. The first is I think all teens, all people have something interesting about them. Maybe it's a matter of kind of digging in the right direction at the right time to find it. Um, and also, students don't have to be changing the world, but colleges do want to know that they're active in their local community and their school.
Mhm.
Another thing I would say there is reaching out is always a good idea, especially for this age group. Teens often respond better to outside guidance from admissions professionals, someone like you or me, Andy,
Yeah.
over like mom and dad telling them what they need to be doing.
Absolutely right. Yeah, we get that feedback a lot, and it's such a good point. I think one thing I've noticed over the years, James, is as that question has been asked to me, parents rarely have the intention of having those words be loaded or sound, condescending even, and what have you. But I think, in my conversations with teenagers, sometimes they hear that language of, "Oh, I'm just an average teen," or "I'm not changing the world," and sometimes that weighs really heavily on them. So I think, in addition to your answers, which are really right on point, just for parents to be aware of kind of how they think about asking those questions, even especially if they're in an earshot with their student, just to make sure they know, they still believe in them. Okay, testing. What to do when we could spend a whole, hour on testing alone, but what's your quick answer for the testing landscape right now?
Yeah, we definitely have in our other events spent an hour talking about testing, especially for younger students, right? When you're not applying this year or even maybe next year, I think having a test score or at least thinking about getting ready for the test is a great idea because you don't know what the testing landscape is going to look like in 2 or 3 or 4 years.
Mhm.
So what that means practically, I would say, is wherever you are, especially if you're a ninth or 10th grader, plan on taking maybe a practice ACT and a practice SAT.
Mhm.
Most schools offer the PSAT in October, so I'd say take that. It doesn't count for anything, so no one's ever going to see your score. It's a really nice, easy way, something you should be doing anyways, to see how you're doing. And then you can plan, like, oh, I did amazing. Maybe I feel kind of ready to take the SAT or the ACT. Or you can say, I'm not quite where I want to be. Maybe I can start prepping. or you might say like that was a horrible experience. I absolutely don't want to do that again,
That's right.
and then could really consider colleges that are truly test optional. But I'd say, yeah, it's never too early just to take a practice and let that kind of guide which step are you going to do. Like, I'm ready for the test, I'm ready for practice, or I know that I don't want to do that at all.
That's right. It's such good guidance. And you mentioned the PSAT offered at most high schools this fall. Definitely, students and parents, you should definitely encourage your student to attend that day, really just for the practice, if nothing else. It is very rare, almost unheard of for schools to offer a practice ACT. If
Yeah.
your school does, awesome. If they don't, you can find that sort of thing online. It should be free or very low cost. Certainly, here at College, we can help you find those options as well. So, finding both a practice ACT, even if it's not offered at the school, is a great option, so that you know moving forward, you and your student, where to focus your efforts in terms of SAT prep or ACT prep, depending on how those practice tests go. Okay, James. So, how early is too early? When should I start talking to my kid about college?
Yeah, Andy, I love something you said earlier about, being careful and sensitive about the way these conversations are handled. I think maybe that's more important, the how than the when.
Mhm.
Because I think if you do it right, the earlier is better because it kind of just normalizes this doesn't have to be a big stress thing. It's just a
Mhm.
thing that most people that we know do. So starting early and gently, I think, is a really good strategy. One of the things we tell a lot of our families is no matter what age you are, you're probably the right age to go visit a campus, especially if you're in the Southern California, like many of our families. There's so many colleges around here. So just visiting a couple, like maybe a small private school and a large public school, just to get, even two schools to compare. You may not even end up going there, but just knowing like, oh, okay, that's what that campus was like. That's what that type of school is like. Oh yeah, I liked one over the other. And it can help to start kind of managing things and just feeling like you have a sense of what the landscape is even a little bit.
Wonderful. And that really segues well into our last question in our last couple minutes. It seems overwhelming by the number of colleges and options that are out there, over 4,000 alone just in this country. How can we make it seem less daunting for our child?
Yeah, so in addition to, I think, again, just visiting a couple schools local to where you are will start to narrow the field. You're like, oh, I don't really like those really huge schools, or I prefer something Jesuit, or I really like that mid-sized one that we visited. And then from there, even thinking into things like weather, how far or how near to home do you want to be, that'll help take those 3,000, 4,000 plus schools and really start narrowing the field, especially once the student has a sense of what major they want. Then you can look at, well, who has a good program around that. And once you start taking all those factors into consideration, it really will narrow things down quite a bit. Obviously, again, reaching out to us, we're always happy at college to help families find best right fit institutions for their students.
Absolutely. James, thank you so much. This has been really, really helpful.
Yeah, of
Great
course.
advice. And parents, if you are watching and have more questions, inevitably you do, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'd be happy to answer them. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, James.